Privilege to speak in this, and I'm delighted to see my friend and neighbour, my right honourable friend and neighbour at the front bench. He will remember as we cycled down the A21 together, quite right, the local infrastructure that we're starting to see emerging in West Kent is extremely impressive, and the work done by our local councils in greening the areas in which we live is fantastic to see. But this isn't just a domestic debate, Madam Deputy Speaker. In fact, this is particularly not a domestic debate. And as we declare a climate change emergency today, I think it's essential that we remember that. Privileged as I am to chair the Foreign Affairs Committee, it's important to look around the world and to see where these threats are appearing. When we look, for example, at the low-lying fields of the Mekong and the threats to rice production, which feeds so many millions, indeed so many billions, in Southeast Asia, or when, for example, we look at the southeast of China and we see so many inhabited and very, very intensively inhabited areas of that country at threat. It's important that we talk about this question not just for ourselves, but actually for the whole world. And we see this particularly when we look at the changes that we're seeing in China, and many members will have heard me being critical of one aspect of China this morning, and so perhaps they'll forgive me if I reflect on a different aspect. China's work in reforestation and changing and reversing the desertification of many areas of land is inspiring. What that country has done in order to promote better green policies in certain areas is an example in many ways to all of us. And we need to be drawing very important lessons from that. Because the threats that we are seeing are not just problems for Southeast Asia. They are actually problems that are affecting us here in the West. If one looks, for example, at some of the triggers, and I don't mean all of them, but at some of the triggers of the Syrian civil war, for example, which led to the mass migration and has had very severe political repercussions in Europe, it is impossible not to look at the challenges of climate change in that country and the impact that it's had on farmers. If, for example, one wishes to look at the rise of al-Shabaab in the Maghreb, in the Sahel, talking about it without talking about climate change is just impossible. So as we talk today about climate change, we're talking fundamentally not just about, of course, the environmental security of our homes. We're not just talking about the dreadful curse of fly tipping poisoning some of our waterways that we see around West Kent and sadly probably in other areas too. We are fundamentally talking about the way we structure a world to deal with the inability to address some of these threats unless we reverse some of the impacts that we're seeing through climate change. So I welcome very much this debate, and I agree this is an emergency.
Jessica Morden.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker.